Your thumb hovers over the post button, and a wave of exhaustion washes over you. You imagine the comment section before it even exists, the arguments that might start, the strangers who might twist your words, the feeling of shouting into a noisy, crowded room where no one is really listening. And so, with a quiet sigh, you press cancel. You close the app. And the thought you were about to share, that beautiful, simple thing, it stays with you, unshared. Maybe it was a photo of long shadows stretching across your backyard at dusk, making ordinary things look mysterious and enchanted. Or maybe it was just a genuine question about an article you'd read, something you hoped would spark a thoughtful conversation. It doesn't matter. It's locked away now. If you've ever felt this kind of digital weariness, you aren't alone. So many of us feel that pull to connect, to add something thoughtful to the world, but we hold back, we self-censor. It's a quiet retreat that happens millions of times a day on millions of phones. And when we, the people who want to share a moment of kindness or a genuine question, step back, the space doesn't become empty, it gets filled by other things, the angry voices, suddenly amplified, the noise. And after a while, it starts to feel like that's all there is, like the digital world is a reflection of the worst parts of humanity, and it makes us want to retreat even further. We start to believe the lie that this is just what people are like now. But what if that feeling of exhaustion isn't a personal failure? What if it isn't about us at all? What if the places where we're trying to connect weren't actually designed for us to feel safe or thoughtful or connected in the first place? It was rigged from the beginning, and we've been blaming ourselves for losing a game we were never meant to win. Today, let's talk about that feeling of being silenced online and the very real, often invisible power we have to change it, together. The simple, hard truth is that the massive companies that run our online world, the ones with names we all know like Meta and X and TikTok, they could make these places safer. They have sophisticated artificial intelligence that can recognize your face in a photo, predict what video you'll want to watch next, and serve you advertisements for products you're likely to buy. So they could absolutely use that same technology to identify patterns of harassment. It could flag coordinated bot networks. It could create safer spaces for genuine human connection. They know how to do it. They have teams of incredibly smart people who could design systems that encourage curiosity and kindness, but they choose not to. Or more accurately, they choose to do just enough to look like they're trying, but not enough to actually solve the problem. Why? Because the chaos, the anger, the fighting, it's good for business. The arguments keep us glued to the screen. The outrage keeps us scrolling, refreshing, checking back for the next horrible comment. And that scrolling, our sustained attention, our inability to look away from the car crash, is the product they sell to advertisers. We think we are the customers, but we're not. We are the product. Our attention, our data, our emotional reactions, that's what's being bought and sold. The system is not broken. It was built this way on purpose. It was designed to profit from our focused attention, even if it costs us our peace of mind, our sense of safety, and our faith in humanity. And here's the part that should make us angry, and I mean really angry, because this isn't speculation, we have proof. There are multiple ways these platforms are actively, knowingly damaging the fabric of our society, and they keep doing it because it's profitable. First, there's the retail therapy loop. It's deliberate. The worse you feel on these platforms, the more likely you are to buy something. Advertisers know this. The platforms know this. When you're upset, anxious, or feeling bad about yourself, you're more vulnerable to the promise that buying something will make you feel better. It's a trap. You scroll through content that makes you feel inadequate. Everyone else's life looks perfect. Everyone else seems smarter or funnier or more successful. You see a fight in the comments that makes your blood pressure rise. You read news that makes you feel helpless and afraid. And then, right there in your feed, an ad appears, a product that promises to fix something about your life. A simple purchase, just one click, and maybe you'll feel a little bit better. It's a rage shop loop. make you feel terrible, then sell you something to give you a false sense of control. The platforms facilitate this cycle to profit from your pain. It's not an accident, it's the business model. Second, they let scammers run wild. Facebook recently admitted through leaked internal documents that roughly 10% of their 2024 revenue came from scam ads and banned goods. 10%. That's about $16 billion they made from ads designed to steal from you or sell you illegal products. And they knew it. Internal documents show they projected this, they built it into their revenue forecasts, and they haven't cracked down on it in any meaningful way. They could, they have the technology. They just don't, because those scam ads are still paying them money, and apparently that's enough. Third, and setting aside for a moment the massive issue of AI-generated misinformation, fake images, deepfakes, synthetic content that's becoming nearly impossible to detect, that's a conversation that needs its own deep dive and a lot of careful thought. But even without AI in the mix, there's something else happening that the platforms could stop right now if they wanted to. Even knowing the damage it causes, they continue to amplify foreign accounts that are deliberately trying to tear our country apart. We know that Facebook and other platforms continue to let politically charged accounts build hatred and division in the United States, even when those accounts aren't run by Americans. In fact, when X turned on location visibility, it was proven that some of the most extreme political accounts, with hundreds of thousands of followers that were shaping the national conversation, turned out to be run from other countries, just people using American rage as bait to make money off our anger. The platforms know this is happening. They have the technology to identify and stop it, but they don't because those accounts generate engagement, and engagement is revenue. And fourth, and this one is the hardest to talk about, but we have to, they're providing a home for some of the most dangerous content imaginable. They're amplifying what's called red pill content, videos and accounts that teach young men to view women as objects to manipulate, that turn loneliness into rage, that tell boys the world owes them something and women are the enemy. This content is wildly popular on YouTube, on TikTok, on platforms we trust with our kids. And it's not hidden in some dark corner of the internet. It's recommended, promoted, pushed into the feeds of teenagers who are just trying to figure out who they are. The platforms could stop it. They could say, we're not giving this a megaphone on our platform. But they don't, because it gets views, and views mean money. And now we have a whole generation of young men who are sabotaging their own chances of building something real with another person, the kind of relationship that would actually double their odds of success in life. Unless they unlearn this now, they are setting themselves up for decades of empty experiences and misery. And life is long, too long to spend it angry and alone. But it doesn't stop there. Accounts promoting violence, explicit content involving minors, and hate speech designed to radicalize vulnerable people. These accounts exist, they grow, and the platforms protect them because they represent revenue. More eyeballs, more ad dollars. I've seen it myself on Instagram, scrolling through what looks like an innocent account about art or cute animals, and then suddenly, a few posts down, it shifts into something disturbing, young women being exploited, hate being spread. And the platforms know. They hide it just enough that most of us don't see the full scope, but they don't remove it, because if someone feels safe posting and viewing that content there, they'll stay, and that means more users to sell to advertisers. These aren't accidents. They aren't an unfortunate side effect of a well-meaning system. They are a choice these companies make every single day, and it's tearing society apart. I find it helpful to think about it like a town square. In a healthy community, a town square is a shared space. It might have benches, a fountain, maybe some trees for shade. There are shared, often unspoken agreements about how to behave there. You can't just walk into the middle of it and start screaming at people through a megaphone 24 hours a day. You can't build a dangerous, unstable structure right where children are playing. You can't deliberately start fights and then profit from the crowd that gathers to watch. There are rules and a shared sense of responsibility that make it a place people actually want to be. It's a place for connection, for commerce, for community. People bring their children there, artists set up their work, musicians play. It's messy and imperfect, but there's an understanding that we all share this space, and we all have a responsibility to make it livable. But right now, our digital town squares feel very different. They are designed to reward the person with the loudest megaphone. The algorithms, the computer programs that decide what we see, are tuned to detect commotion. An angry argument is a commotion. A shocking lie is a commotion. A cruel joke is a commotion. The system sees that commotion, sees that everyone is stopping to stare at the digital car crash, and it pushes that crash to the front of everyone's feed. It doesn't ask if the commotion is true or helpful or kind. It only asks if it's getting attention. The quiet conversation between two friends about a book they both loved, the algorithm barely registers it. The thoughtful essay about a complicated topic, it gets buried. The photo of the long shadows stretching across your backyard, it disappears from our FYPs almost immediately. But the rage, the outrage, the fear, that gets amplified, pushed, promoted. It's incredibly profitable, but it's making us sick. It's making us more anxious, more divided, and more lonely. It's changing how we see each other and how we see ourselves. And the people who built it know this. The same billionaires who created these platforms, who champion them as tools for free expression and connection, often don't let their own children use them without strict limits. They send them to schools that famously restrict screen time and emphasize hands-on learning. Some of them don't let their kids have smartphones until they're teenagers. They have rules about no devices at the dinner table, no scrolling before bed. They know the risks. They know the addictive nature of what they've built. They know how it can harm a developing mind, how it can shorten attention spans, increase anxiety, distort a person's sense of self-worth. They know how it can harm everyone. They understand the danger of a town square with no rules, where the angriest voices are given the biggest platforms, where lies travel faster than truth. They just don't want the rest of us to think too hard about it. They want us to believe that this is just the price of progress, or that if we feel bad online, it's our own fault for not being stronger, for not being resilient enough, for not being able to handle the modern world. So what do we do? If the game is rigged, do we just stop playing? Do we delete all our accounts and retreat from public life online? For some, that might be the right answer. For some, stepping away completely is an act of self-preservation, and there's no shame in that. But for most of us, these tools are deeply woven into our lives, our friendships, our work. We keep in touch with family across the country through these apps. We find community in groups dedicated to our hobbies or our struggles. We share our art, our writing, our small businesses. Retreating completely isn't a real option, and when we retreat, we surrender the space to the very forces that drove us away. The loud voices get louder, the manipulators have less resistance, the town square becomes even more inhospitable. The solution isn't for each of us to fight this enormous battle alone. It's not about finding the perfect comeback or winning an argument in the comments. It's not about being braver or tougher or developing a thicker skin. The solution is to realize that we have immense power when we act together. We, the users, are the ones who make these platforms valuable. We post the family photos. We share the news articles. We ask the questions. We create the funny videos, the thoughtful essays, the recipes, the art. We are the lifeblood of these networks. Without our creativity, our curiosity, and our communities, these multi-billion-dollar companies are nothing but empty containers. These big tech companies know that without us, they are worthless. A social media platform with no people creating content is just expensive computer code sitting on a server somewhere. It's time we started acting like we know that. It's time we stopped thinking of ourselves as powerless individuals and started thinking of ourselves as a community with shared interests and shared power. And here's the thing, traditional protests feel impossible right now because we're all stretched too thin. We're working 2 jobs, trying to keep our kids safe, trying to keep up with bills and laundry and everything else. We're already overwhelmed. The idea of adding one more thing, of showing up in person someplace we've never been to protest, or putting our personal safety on the line by risking arrest, confrontation, or actual physical violence, it's just too much. The system has made it that way on purpose. When people are exhausted and afraid, they don't organize, they don't show up, they don't resist, they just try to survive. But here's what's powerful about what we're talking about. We don't have to show up in person. We're already all online together. We're already where we need to be. We just have to coordinate not showing up for a day or a week. We just have to agree together to turn social media off. And I know what you're thinking. Humans can barely make it through one day without scrolling. We've been conditioned to be consumers, to be constantly connected. For some people, their entire identity is wrapped up in their social media presence, and that's part of the problem. But maybe that's why we start small and make it easy. You don't have to give up technology entirely. Go play a video game, watch a show, read a book, clean out a drawer, do a load of laundry, go for a hike, visit a small business. The point isn't to punish ourselves, it's to send a message. And maybe, if we're coordinated, we'll get to see each other out there in real life. Imagine if you're at a local coffee shop on a designated day and you see someone else there too, and you both smile because you know you're both part of it. You're both choosing to be offline together. We have to learn how to be off the social platforms while still being together, doing things, living our lives in the real world where we can actually see each other's faces. Imagine for a moment if the millions of us who feel this way, all the thoughtful, kind, creative people who have been staying quiet, decided to coordinate. What if we organized? We're told that the only way to make our voices heard is to post more, to engage more, to feed the machine. But what if we used our collective power in a different way? What if we all agreed that for 1 week we wouldn't buy a single thing we saw advertised on a social media app? No clicking the Shop Now button, no impulse purchases from a targeted ad, just a simple, quiet boycott. It would send a crystal clear message that hits these companies where it actually hurts, their revenue. When advertisers see that their ads aren't converting to sales, they get nervous. They start asking questions. They start demanding better environments for their brands. And here's the thing. The companies we keep saying we need to protest, the Targets, the Walmarts, the big corporations, they're the exact same advertisers funding these toxic platforms. If we can coordinate to step away from social media, we're not just hurting the platforms, we're sending a message to every brand that advertises there. It would show them that we are not just passive consumers of content. We are a community that has demands, and we have the power to back up those demands with action. Or what if we did something creative? What if, for just one day, we coordinated to flood our feeds with something specific? Maybe it's a picture of the sky, or a memory of a moment of kindness, something deliberately, wonderfully human and calm. Imagine scrolling through your feed and instead of outrage and ads and arguments, you saw a river of sky photos from all over the world, a cascade of simple beauty, clouds over Tokyo, sunset in Montana, dawn breaking over someone's backyard in Ohio. It wouldn't fix the whole system, of course, but it would change the feeling of the space, even for a day. It would be a powerful reminder of what these tools could be used for, what they were supposed to be for in the first place. It would show ourselves and the companies that run these platforms what's possible when we choose joy and connection over rage and division. This isn't about leaving these platforms forever in a fit of anger. It's about demanding that they become better, safer, more human places to be. It's about organizing, just like citizens have always organized, to insist that powerful institutions serve our communities, not just their shareholders. Throughout history, people have organized to demand safer workplaces, cleaner air and water, protection from discrimination. They've organized boycotts and sit-ins and letter-writing campaigns. They've used their collective power to force institutions to change. And it worked. Not perfectly, not all at once, but it worked. The feeling of being unsafe and exhausted online is real, but it doesn't have to be a permanent condition. It is not an inevitable feature of technology. It is the result of choices made by a small number of people in boardrooms in Silicon Valley, people who prioritized profit over our well-being. And we can make our own choices. We can choose differently. We don't have to accept an internet that drains us of our hope and our energy. We have the numbers, the creativity, and the collective power to demand one that actually connects us. We can demand transparency about how algorithms work. We can demand real consequences for harassment. We can demand tools that let us control our own experience without leaving entirely. We can support the platforms and the people who are trying to do it differently, even when they're small and imperfect. We can vote with our attention, our time, and our money, and we can do it together because that's where our power is, not in individual acts of resistance, but in collective action, coordinated and sustained. It all starts when we stop accepting the feelings of overwhelm as inevitable and start asking, together, what we can build and what we can demand for our shared online life. It starts when we recognize that the exhaustion we feel isn't weakness, it's a reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. And it continues when we find each other, when we organize, when we use our voices not to shout into the void, but to speak to each other, to coordinate, to build the kind of online world we actually want to live in. The one where genuine questions spark genuine conversations, where we can be thoughtful and vulnerable and kind without fear. That world is possible, but only if we build it together. I know there are other battles to fight online. AI systems that replace human creativity without consent, monopoly companies manipulating markets and crushing competition, privacy violations, misinformation. The list is long and overwhelming, but we can't fight everything at once. We have to start somewhere, and social media is where most of us are. It's where we gather, where we connect, where we get our news and form our opinions about the world. It doesn't matter if you pay for a subscription or scroll for free, we're all there, and it's shaping everything else. The loneliness, the polarization, the rage, the way we see each other and ourselves, so much of it flows from these platforms. If we can get social media in check, if we can force these companies to build something better, I believe the other fights become easier. We'll have clearer heads, stronger communities, and proof that we can actually win. So let's start here, together. I'm Luma from This Online Life, and I have a simple ask. If any of this landed with you, don't let it stop there. Follow This Online Life on whatever platform you're on, and tell someone about this conversation. We're just beginning, and the more of us who show up, the harder we become to ignore. Thanks for listening.